What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday to you. I hope that you enjoy your day. Thank you so much to those who have recently subscribed to my content. If you dig pragmatic approaches to these conversations, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You know, I think a lot. And those of you who follow my content, I think a lot. And a lot of times I'm thinking about different thought tanks, right? And this is why, this channel is called the Intellectuals Thought Corner, because I consider myself a highly intellectual person. I look at things from a very pattern perspective. And so I kind of look at things and I sit back, and I don't like to be on any bandwagon of ignorance. And so when I'm listening to different thought groups and discussions, I can actually pull certain points of reasonableness from some of these groups. And I can find myself agreeing with them, from maybe a cultural scale. So, like I talked about in some of my previous videos, for the last 4 years, I have been really diving into all these various different thought tanks. And check out one of my latest live streams, because I was actually talking about the Black thought tanks in America. And within these thought tanks, obviously, there are different, or what I call herds of mentality. There are different rules for, what a Black person should be like, how they should think, and they're different, thought cages, if you will. And if you are like associated with a certain, group within that thought tank, it's almost like you're feeling like you're being pulled, right? Because you have this FBA thought tank, you have the ADOS movement thought tank, you got the Pan-African thought tank, you got all these different thought tanks, right? Pan-Africans say that, hey, there should be no delineation. We are all Black people from the same African diaspora, and we need to come together, coalesce. I don't have any disagreement with thinking like that, right? And then you have, the FBA contingency, who are like, we are foundational Black Americans. We need to delineate ourselves from other Black-looking people. And obviously the purpose of this is for reparations, right? I think this is more of a reparations conversation for this FBA contingency, and really nothing more, right? Because I think that a lot of reasonable foundational Black Americans, we can concede that a lot of our African and Caribbean brothers and sisters within the diaspora, they are, not maybe culturally linked to us, but ancestrally we are linked in various different ways, right? And so FBAs, it's giving Black nationalists, but it's also giving Black entitled nationalists, and ADOS, I think they're a little bit more subtle in their approach, but the conversations typically are the same, right? And then you have Black independence. And really, people don't really care about us because we're not going to really take a position on almost anything. We'll be able to reasonably look at any thought tank and say, okay, yeah, I can get with that point, But a lot of times it's the rhetoric that comes out of these thought tanks that really can turn off people who are truly highly intelligent Black people. And you got all these Black looking people on the internet, selling these ideas and even products and stocks to Black people. And it's hard to kind of weave through a lot of these herds of mentality. And for me, taking the middle of the road, neutral, not being on a bandwagon of ignorance approach is always going to be better. But I do follow a lot of these thought leaders within their tanks, and one of them is Tariq Nasheed. Now, I've commented on Tariq Nasheed before. I do believe he's a reparations race hustler. I do believe that he is intelligent enough to know that, reparations is not viable for Black Americans like any other economic entitlement of that magnitude. But at the same time, Tariq has, in my opinion, an ulterior motive here, because obviously there's a lot of FBA Black men, especially, who are being sort of influenced to be on the train of Trump, and hey, people do what they want to do. I thought it was very interesting that, it is coming out, I guess, that Trump allegedly is saying that he lost the election in 2020. And a lot of his base are pissed off because they're like, hey, man, there are people locked up because you said that this election was stolen. And people have all kinds of reasons as to, why he is backtracking what he said about the election. But sorry, guys, my sinuses are going nuts. I told y'all, these are the seasons. I have really bad allergies, so I be wailing sometimes on these live streams and videos. But anyways, I follow Tariq Nasheed, right? Getting back to Tariq, I follow Tariq, and he posted this picture. I will reiterate this. If you have a relative who does all of this performative bed wenching for Zaddy, he's talking about a white person. If they end up missing, please do not contact me to help y'all get some form of justice, right? So, Tariq is responding to a post by a young lady on TikTok who is, she appears to be a Black woman, probably biracial. Let's see how she's talking.
I've never seen an unhappy Black woman with a fine ass white man. I've never seen it. And we could talk about it more. Because the ones that be happy as hell with their white man, they be getting everything that they want. And that's gonna be me next. Happily in love, living a life, they man spoiling them. They just over there. Where the white man at? I'm at the point where I'm sick of you niggas. Like, I am. Y'all give nothing no more. So I'm dating out of my comfort zone now, and I'm gonna give me a Caucasian man. So where y'all at?
So, here's the thing about, people talking about reasons why they're dating outside of their race. And, at first I felt like it was kind of problematic, but then it's kind of like I have a reason for being reluctant to date outside of my race. And a lot of my reasons have to do with the perception of men within my own race. And, I've been told several times, stop waiting for a Black man, Angie. Stop waiting for these dudes to really try to treat you like some of these other men who are trying to get your attention. It's crazy. I think that a lot of Black women, we really are trying to find a really good Black man. But I think that the mentality of the majority of Black men, it's just really off. They're kind of in some of these herds and think tanks of mentality. They're committed to all kinds of ignorance. And it's really hard, especially if you're somebody like me who is politically neutral. I don't like to be on any bandwagon of ignorance. It is really difficult to find a guy that has that same energy. I've actually found that same energy more with non-Black guys than even Black guys, because they're almost in that mindset that, Black women should be thinking like they do, right? But for me, the only Black man that I would actually think like he does, if he's like, an avid follower of Messiah, he's a God-fearing man, and he's a good leader. You know what I mean? A lot of our men don't demonstrate that. Now, on the flip side, a lot of white guys are showing their asses too, right? And you see, some of these random videos of black women failing in relationships with white men. Tamar Braxton, come to the front of congregation. You and JR are a mess, right? Um, but you also see a lot of black women who are in successful relationships with white men. And I think that that's the conversation that a lot of these blackity black men, it frustrates them because, that reality that there are some black women, I know a lot of them, who are in happy relationships with non-black men, and they don't necessarily have to be white, right? I think a lot of times people look at the cultures of other men, and if a black woman go outside of her race, they automatically like, oh, you gonna be with this white man, right? But I do find that black men, they can tolerate black women being with other kind of ethnicities that are not white, right? For them, it's very problematic when they see black women with white men. And I think I've dated white men before, and I've kind of experienced, the comments about that. So, a lot of black men are not very fond of their women dating white men. And I think that is sort of like a stab at them. But on the flip side, it's like a lot of them are not empowering themselves to be the types of men that black women are even going to want to grow with and struggle with. And that's really what a lot of black women are sort of, calculating is, you know, unfortunately, and this is sad to say, this is the reality of society, there is a better chance of financial stability, for black women being with non-black men, because non-black men have an advantage in America that black men don't have, right? And so their opportunity to be able to get a job, and that's going to be able to, allow them to take care of not just themselves but family. I mean, it is, there's so, like I said, there's so much nepotism in this country that, white men always have a better advantage than black men in this nation. And so for me, it's like, I've dated white men, but I've never seriously dated white men. It was kind of more of a fun thing, hanging out, more, friend thing, but it wasn't like anything that I'm like, oh my God, I can see my hopes and dreams with this person. I mean, even down to my kids, like my kids' father is black. So I've always had a struggle with it because of the social stigma behind interracial dating, right? But to the sister's point, you can spend your whole life waiting for a man to come and secure you. And some of our brothers are just not ready, and I don't think it's reasonable to ask a woman, if you're a man that's like 35 plus, to help you build yourself as a man. That should have happened in your 20s. And if it didn't, then you missed the boat, and it's unreasonable for you to expect for any woman to accept you as is. And I don't, especially if you're trying to be a leader and, be the man of the house, it's like, bro, you need to be trusted, respected, and worthy to even have that position. And a lot of you guys don't have it. And a lot of these white guys, they're just in a position to lead. And, I will say, to her point, I have not seen a whole lot of black women who are just upset and, disorganized and disheveled being with white men. I mean, you may see your one-offs. Yeah. I mean, there's an example that some of these guys are passing around about this white woman. This black woman, they call her divester, and this white guy. But that's really, to me, that is not the typical. It's a one-off. And, obviously some of these dudes are going to need any type of an example to show Black women why they shouldn't be dating non-Black men, specifically white men, right? But they got to be realistic about it too. There are a lot of white men who are good to their Black women, and they have been together for a long time. And one of my favorite clients is a white man married to a brown-skinned Black woman. They got a beautiful son, and they're really good people, and they're happy. They're a normal couple. So, you know, I understand the Black man's sentiment when his woman dates outside of the racial group, but at the same time, I'm looking at things from like a human perspective too. And at the end of the day, people deserve to be happy. I don't think like for her, she's saying I'm going specifically to white men, right? Because obviously her perception is that white men can make Black women happier, but there's a lot of other type of group men that can make Black women happy that may not even consider themselves white. So, think about it like that. Like me personally, if I was going to go for a non-Black man, I think that, I would still try to stay within the Semitic family and like really go somewhere like maybe Middle Eastern, Turkey or something like that, like Turkish. Those men are so fine to me. They are. I don't care what any Black man say. It's not about divesting, but y'all look at all these non-Black women and be ogling over them too. So don't tell our eyes what to do, right? Turkish men can be fine. But anyways, you guys, you have a wonderful day, and let me know what you think about this. And if you like content like this, subscribe. And let's keep these conversations going. Bye.